me down. Down to the rabbit hole. Follow me down. Follow me down. Rabbit hole.
Hello and welcome to the Rabbit Hole Heroines. I am Jessica, the big weird mom.
And I'm Jess, crazy mother runner.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. We've got a really exciting guest today. One of my personal wonderful friends who I love very dearly, Kate from TikTok World's Okayest. We're so happy to have you here. Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
excited.
Why don't you tell our viewers just a little bit about what you're about and what brought you to TikTok and how we met and all that fun stuff.
Okay. Let's see. I lost my job because of COVID, like so many people. And I was a comedian for years and kind of took a hiatus from that and was working in property management companies. And once I lost my job, I just kind of got on TikTok to have something to do. And it kind of just took off. I started talking about myself and comedy and then my kids. And then once things got a little political this past year, I got more and more political. And I've been lucky enough to build a pretty good sized platform. But yeah, it's just me making jokes, talking politics, and that's about it.
Yeah, well,
Try
I
to
love
summarize
you
yourself.
dearly. I know it's hard when you get on there. It's crazy.
Yes.
You were one of the first people that I followed, and I think you followed me when I had like 200 followers. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I messaged you because I was like, I fell in love with you. I was like, hey, in real life, we need to be friends. Like I sent you a message, sent you my phone number. I was like, let's be friends. I was on my way to the grocery store, and you texted me, so I called you. I was like, what are you doing?
I feel like you were one of my first political TikTokers I followed. Like you and Nikki New and Duchess were like my first three that I was like, oh, I love these women.
That's how it was. Duchess was one of my first too. Yeah. I didn't set out to become a political TikToker, but it just kind of organically happened that way.
Well, the same.
Because when you care about stuff, you talk about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Yep.
Well, hey, Jess, what's going on in the QAnon world today? We'll get caught up and then we'll go down our rabbit hole.
Not a whole, I say not a whole lot. So Sidney Powell, Doug Billings, he does lots of interviews with the QAnon folks, the crazy folks. And Sidney Powell recently spoke with him, and this was 10 days ago. And basically she's like still like just really digging in deep with the whole Dominion conspiracy algorithm vote flipping thing. Like she's just not letting it die. And I'm like, for real, like, why are we still here? So she did all this. Meanwhile, there's this big defamation suit that Dominion just, put against her. Of course, I'm sure everyone's heard about it. And she literally has in the document, she's telling everyone, well, I didn't think any reasonable person would believe me. And that's now her defense to try to get it dismissed.
Fox News defense right there.
Exactly. Like it's the Tucker Carlson defense.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
100%. So she's totally playing that. I say deep prayers for her lawyers every day. I cannot imagine Lori like being the lawyer to that lawyer because she's a hot mess. And then Simon, of course, like I know last week I talked about, he was like on his thing, basically mentioning that one person from his connective consciousness had like taken their own life versus taking the vaccine. Right. He did another interview with Doug Billings. He like reiterated that. He actually like just posted today. I haven't even done a video about it. But he just posted today this like image of like, like speaking of rabbit holes, like holding a stopwatch, like from Alice in Wonderland, and basically saying we're entering a crucial phase. Like no timeline, no dates, just it's happening shortly. So, I
feel like they've been saying we've been in a crucial phase since like November 7th.
Yeah, basically. So basically, to verbatim, the next few days are of the greatest importance. It must be noticeable that the commenters in the know are having to hold back information in regard to the return of the king and the new financial system. I really hope King was
Who's
not
the
Trump.
king?
But
Is it King
I don't want it.
capitalized?
Yeah, King was capitalized, big K.
Like Jesus then? We're talking Jesus?
I don't know if we're talking Jesus. You never know with Simon. Like, you never know with Simon.
Wow.
So what's
They're
happening
talking
in
like-
Parlor?
Well, Parlor had a little bit of a wires crossed situation after, unfortunately, the Boulder shooting happened this week.
Yeah.
And at first, they were like, they jumped on the false flag wagon right away. They started posting that, this person predicted that this was going to happen. And I knew as soon as Biden got into office, there was going to be a mass shooting and we were going to hear all about it so that they could take away our guns. And then they found out that the shooter was from Syria and they had a stroke.
Yeah.
They were like, what
Stroked
do we
out.
do now? Yeah.
It's got to be real now.
Yeah, no. Do we hop on the Middle Eastern thing, or do we stay with the false flag? They
Do we want to hate Biden or be
mind.
racist? Let's
Right,
figure it
Right,
out.
exactly.
Gotta pick it up.
Exactly.
Pick your choice. Pick your poison.
Can't be both,
So-
guys.
Yeah,
Can't be
no.
both. Obama's not in the office anymore. That's not an option.
Right. Right. Well, they call him Obama's puppet, is what they call Biden.
They do.
Obama's
They do
puppet.
that. They're saying that in the Telegram too with the QAnoners.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Let's see what else happened. Alex Jones posted a video about how boys' penises are getting smaller.
Oh my God, I
because
saw
of
that!
Marcus posted about it too.
Because of what?
But because of everything that's in the water and all of the
Plastics.
pollution and the plastics and everything is getting into the bloodstream and making penises smaller. And apparently by like 2087, was that sometime within the next century, men will be completely infertile.
Yes. They'll
Well-
be sterile.
Oh, A.
Yeah.
B, like, that just screams to me that he already has a small penis. And he's
He's
just trying
make
to like lay the
excuses.
groundwork.
Yeah.
You know?
It's not just me, you
Because
guys.
what was it a few
was the
years
plastic.
ago? Right. A few years ago, they were like, all these girls are overdeveloping and it's because of the hormones and the water. So like,
Mhm.
so the water now is giving young girls big tits and young boys small dicks. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, that's what you're hearing.
Yes.
That's what I'm gathering from this information. I totally saw a video though, and I was like, "What?" It's totally
so
like the asexual
stupid.
frogs, though. So it's totally down Alex Jones's alley. That makes complete sense.
Yeah, he's just trying to shill his whatever hormone or not hormone. He sells a bunch of weird snake oil on his
Supplements or
site.
something?
Yeah, supplements, and he just it's just a grift at this point. I think he's just grasping at straws.
Simon does too, though. Simon
really?
So he sells supplements. He sells CBD products, and then he also just started like backing some product. This was like a recent video. He's backing some new product for his connective conscious. So they're going to get 30% off if you're a subscriber to his connective conscious. So like he's grifting his little heart out,
Mhm.
and he's coming to the States. Oh, that was another big thing. He's coming to the States in the next few weeks to meet with his connective conscious leaders here in Florida.
Wow.
So it should be interesting. I'm terrified to have that man be in this country.
Yeah, whenever somebody like sells stuff like that, when they get into the like nutritional supplements side of things, or they sell something that has absolutely nothing to do with the content that they produce, like that's when I scratch my head and think that those are the people who really know the truth and
Mhm.
are just trying to take advantage.
They're absolutely trying to take advantage.
Yeah.
100%.
And people are going to
Well-
do it. People are going to buy it. They're going to do it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's like it's this whole culture right now and I think TikTok is definitely contributing to it. And I'm grateful for it that, it seems like everyone can have a platform, but it's a dangerous road we're going down.
Yeah.
Some of these people that
Yeah.
have platforms, especially on TikTok, where sometimes things are censored, really in the wrong way. Like,
Yes,
Mhm.
100%.
it's extremely frustrating. I've had so many people screenshot pictures of my videos and
Mhm.
it asking them if my video makes them uncomfortable. I'm like, what? Why? Yeah.
If their video makes you uncomfortable,
Like if my video is making other people uncomfortable. Yeah.
Like, who cares?
well, yeah,
That's
who
why
cares?
the
It's
scrolling
not.
is
I've
an
never gotten
option.
that on anybody before. Like, it's just strange to me. Whatever.
Well, I did actually, I don't know if you saw, but I did a whole video because I had this woman and it's the woman that kind of befriended me. That's a Trumper. But I didn't really attack her, but I was like, she made a bait video. Basically. It was like,
Mhm.
explain to me why Biden has 81 million votes, but none of the people on here that voted for Biden can support each other or follow each other. And I'm like,
I saw that.
Yeah. So I made like,
It's like
kind
there's
of
more people outside of the world than TikTok, bitch.
Yeah.
there's the first point. But so I basically made a video. I said, first of all, Trump rally sizes and TikTok support, followers don't have any basis in like voting. Okay. Let's
Right.
move past that. But secondly, I was just like pointing out, I was like, it's really ironic because, and I'm sure one of them, I assume, but she's one of many that have just jumped on the TikTok bandwagon in the last few months because, and I said in the video, I'm like, Facebook doesn't want you. They're censoring you and
Mhm.
Twitter's kicked you off. So now you're trying to
Mhm.
find a new platform to, troll out Biden supporters, to, create this very controversial thing, make some money if you can. Like, that's what they're doing. But they're trying to play it up like, oh, we've been here all along. I'm like, no, you haven't. And then they're in like the back door of Clapper, like talking crap about all of us and making like videos. And I've seen that too. So that's fun. But yeah, it blows my mind. Like, they only came here in the last few months and I'm like, none of you were here before because Trump hated TikTok. Like, don't even play.
And the
You
ones
weren't
that
here
were on TikTok, I swear, most of them were bots. Unless they were just like completely, like that one guy that had like the American flag pants and like the colorful. Do you know the guy I'm talking about? He was such a douche. Like,
Oh my God.
he was probably like, I don't know. I'm 5'1", so he was like my height with a big old like MC Hammer style American flag pants with like Trump gear galore, this like multicolored rainbow wall covered with Trump flags and like don't tread on me. And I wanted to block him so bad because I didn't want to see his content, but I also wanted to see it because I was like, if this is what we're working with, I'm not worried. We're going to win.
We're good. We're good. We're safe.
We're safe.
Well, we're definitely not safe.
So Elizabeth said that she almost had one of her political education TikToks under review for 24 hours. Have you guys noticed this too? All of my videos that have anything to do with Parler have been under review. One was under review for like 9 or 10 hours, I think. And I had no text on it at all. No text, nothing. It's crazy.
I've been getting that. I've had all of my most of my videos, especially ones that probably come off as like reply to comment ones, particularly, or anyone that I make reference to something kind of controversial. Like I've said the word suicide. I've said a couple like trigger words, and they'll put them on freeze for like anywhere from 1 to like 6-7 hours. Like, I've definitely noticed that more and more lately.
I had 2 videos that I put up this week and both were taken down and I was live on Monday. I was cooking dinner and someone reported me for nudity. My kids were in the kitchen with me. Yeah. And I like had to, appeal it or whatever. And they were like, oh, well, we reversed the decision. And I was like, well, I'm not live now, doofus. Like, it doesn't matter now. But that, and then those videos, they got taken down. So like, since Monday, especially since the shooting, I really haven't been in the mood to make content. Like, it's exhausting because like, I don't feel like I'm at a place where I can joke about stuff right now, make light of stuff when such heavy things are happening in our world. Like it feels insincere, Oh
yeah. I've been like rage posting. So yeah, I understand.
I wish I could rage post, but
I've been kind of rage, like emotional posting, not like upset, but like, just like, what the hell is wrong with this world right now? Like, why are we here? So,
my whole account is rage posting.
If you do it well, just stick with it, right?
Yeah.
Actually, when I
It's
do
what
rage
works.
post, those videos do quite well. They get
mean,
like hundreds
yeah.
of thousands of views, and then TikTok's like, "Oh, you hurt someone's feelings." I'm like, of course.
Delete.
They call us
mean,
snowflakes. Okay.
Right. Facts.
So
ridiculous.
Kate, you focus on a lot of different things
Yeah.
on TikTok. You've got lots of different rabbit holes that you go down. I think what really feel like we started our connection on was when you were talking about late term abortion rights and abortion rights in general, and you shared your story with that. And if you'd like, if you could just share with our audience exactly what happened and how you came to deciding to put that on TikTok.
Well, in 2014, I was pregnant with my second son, Case. And a little over halfway through the pregnancy, we discovered he had a heart defect, a CHD, congenital heart defect. I went into the hospital for about 2 months trying to save him, and he just steadily declined. He was not receiving blood flow and oxygen to his brain properly. He had developed eye drops. His heart rate was like in the 700s, which is crazy. Most babies are like
My
in the
gosh.
180s. Yeah. And he was tired. He was very tired. And once they came to us and told us, what his quality of life was going to look like, we had the opportunity to induce so that we could try to meet him, and that's what we decided to do. At the time, I really didn't understand what decision I was making. I just knew what the outcome of that decision was going to be. I didn't understand how politically charged it was in that moment, if that makes sense. And it took me a few years to really understand what had happened to us and my family when, laws started to change, or people trying to change Roe versus Wade, and all of these things were happening. And I was reading all of these similar stories of other moms like grieving similar losses, and they kept calling it, late term abortion. And I was like kind of offended initially at that term. I was like, absolutely not. I would not do what are you talking about? And then, I had to put myself aside a little bit and listen, because I grew up in a very conservative family, very Southern Baptist family. And while I've questioned all of my beliefs growing up, and I'm on the opposite side of everything I was taught as a young child when it comes to like religion and politics, honestly, I had to listen to these women. And once I learned, and then I got the guts to look at his death certificate, and it read termination, my whole world kind of shattered all over again. So I had to, kind of reshape the way that I thought about this. And that was hard. It was extremely hard. And then last year with Trump saying that people are trying to murder babies up into 9 months, perfectly healthy babies, these kinds of things, that is so toxic and dangerous. And it is completely offensive to the memory of my child who was desperately wanted. These moms and these parents, these families, whatever your family looks like, these people are wanting these babies. They have names, they have nurseries, they, have car seats, for goodness sake, and to say stuff like that is extremely hurtful. And, then people will say stuff like, well, I don't consider that abortion. I'm like, but that's what you're voting against. So you should consider it that. That's what it's exactly what it's a medical term. That's what you should consider it as, so that women like me, or people with uteruses like me, I'm trying to use inclusive language because I think that's really important, because I don't think that happens enough. Sorry. But anyone with a uterus deserves the right to choose what's best for them, their lives, their families, with their doctors. And here in Texas, we have a lawmaker that out of Arlington, he introduced a bill for the death penalty for women and physicians that have abortions. No caveats, nothing. Like incest, rape, medical, ectopic, where you could literally bleed out and die, or lose your uterus and both your fallopian tubes and never be able to have any more children. No, like excuses. Cannot. You deserve the death penalty. That happened earlier in January. It's kind of been in the media here. So
and is that what is the talk surrounding that? Is that expected to pass? I mean, how can they just
no
yeah.
one's expecting it to pass.
The
But
fact that they're even introducing it, though,
yeah, I think it's really powerful to remember that there's hundreds of these laws that have happened since January. Hundreds,
Right.
okay? But not
Right.
one Republican voted for the COVID relief plan, okay?
Right.
And not one Republican is talking about gun reform.
Right. Because
They're
after
more
they're born,
concerned
they don't
about
care.
uteruses,
Right.
Yes.
right? I mean,
Yeah. After the baby is here, that baby needs to pull itself up by its bootstraps, and there is no.
that's why they're not
Yeah.
pro-life; they're pro-birth.
Correct.
Right.
You know, and if you're not the one birthing them, then you don't get a fucking opinion. Like
Yeah.
you just
Right.
don't.
100%.
Yeah. It's
So,
just not that cut and dry. You know, I think that
No.
there is always this pressure to and I feel like this is pretty across the board as far as conservatives go. They have this echo chamber, and they look at things from one perspective, and they just are not willing or able to back up from the picture and see how these things affect others. And, you know, it just is going for the cheap jab. Like they're just like, well, they want to kill babies. So that's the end of the story, you know, and it's just not that cut and dry, you know, like there are thousands of different situations that happen in women's lives that, you know, are completely out of our control. You know, it's like when I was 16, I got pregnant and ended up deciding not to have the baby. And I thought that was going to be the only time I ever had to make that choice. You know, after I got married and started having kids, and, you know, it never seemed like it would be an option to me. I thought that I had made it to the finish line, and it was just about, you know, whatever, making sure that my kids were happy and healthy. And then, you know, when I started having babies and starting having all of these complications, I had endometriosis. You know, I had hyperemesis, which is, you know, a whole different subject and a whole other fight.
Rough.
You know, I fought for my life and for my babies' lives 24 hours a day for my whole pregnancy, where I was sick in the cancer center I had to have vitamin bags and banana bags and potassium injections. And, you know, I was in the cancer center for 20 hours a week for my second pregnancy. You know, my first, I lost 35 pounds. And, you know, so pregnancy is not something that my body can just do. It reluctantly drags itself along, but without medical intervention, that's not something that a baby will survive. A baby cannot survive in my body. Right. So when I had my second child, you know, one of the first conversations that we had with my doctor was, when can I, you know, get my tubes tied or whatever. And my doctor suggested that she take out my uterus and leave my ovaries, because that would help with the endometriosis. And obviously it would be a very permanent birth control option for me. Right. And the other, you know, with my body, my hormones I don't do well with hormones at all. So any type of hormonal birth control just doesn't work for me. My hair falls out. I become an insane person. Like, it just isn't an option for every woman. It's not cut and dry. So, you know, we got to last summer, as I started to make my TikTok account and started to kind of, at this point I had literally 0 followers. And I shared my story and it didn't catch on. I ended up deleting my, these stories, but what happened was I went in to have this partial hysterectomy, and, you know, they told me that based on what they had seen in my scans and what my doctor had seen, she said that she didn't think I could even get pregnant at this point because I had so much going on. I had an emergency C-section with my first, and then my second was born at 34 weeks because of preeclampsia. So my whole situation just did not work. And she was like, you're probably not going to be able to get pregnant. So I wasn't really worrying about it per se, but, you know, we were taking precautions. But, you know, it also was too painful to have sex. So it just wasn't really happening because of the endometriosis. So I got in to have my surgery and got into the operating room, and they set up my IV and they had everything going. And for some reason, they didn't run the pregnancy test until after they had given me the Versed, which is like a very, very strong anti-anxiety medication that they give you right before they put you under for anesthesia. Right. And so they come in, everyone is set up in the operating room, and my doctor comes in, and as I'm like just spacing out, and she's like, I'm really sorry, Jessica, but you're pregnant. And I was like, okay. She's like, we had a very short conversation. She said, I, as your doctor, have to tell you that I cannot endorse you going through with this pregnancy. You cannot carry another child. This could possibly kill you, just based on my health history. And so she got me out of the OR, and she said, I'm sorry, we can't. I said, okay, well, just do it. Go ahead with the surgery, and it will be a hysterectomy and an abortion. And she said, unfortunately, you have to authorize it. And because of the medication that you've been given, you cannot authorize that. I said, okay, well, tell my husband, he can authorize it. He's on all of my paperwork. And she said, well, you didn't fill out the power of attorney information. And I remember all of this. So like, I wasn't completely out of it. And she's like, you're not going to remember this conversation. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I will. But so they spent like an hour with risk management, just kind of discussing what they could do and whether or not they could do it. And she had a really full surgery schedule, and but somehow she managed to clear her schedule to go in for the surgery the next day. So I had to wait 24 hours knowing that I was pregnant and wishing with everything that I had that I could have this baby, but knowing that I couldn't leave my kids, you know?
Yeah.
You have two other kids to think about.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Here. Right. And even the pregnancy alone would take me out of their lives, you know, I probably would have been, even if it could have was an option, I would have been hospitalized for months at a time.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I think a lot of women have this story, and, you know, and unfortunately, because there is so much shaming, you know, people don't share it. And that's why everyone thinks that a late term abortion is anything but, you know, it's like by limiting that, the only thing you're doing is limiting the parent's ability to meet their child and spend time with their child, you know, by outlawing something like that. So that is my story.
Well, it's
I love
funny.
you. It's really strong to like share stuff like that, especially on platforms as big as some of ours are, you know?
Yeah.
Because you open yourself up to so much
criticism. Yeah.
I think that was the worst part about it.
Yeah.
I think I did my story in like 19 parts because it took me a very long time to tell all the details.
Yeah. And it's emotional. Like it's super emotional. You know, for me, you know, and I started out with doing kind of a analogy, shall you say, in regards to my view on abortion, which is the whole, you know, bodily autonomy argument where, you know, I did this whole, like, if you're driving a car and you've both gotten in the car and you both know the risk and you're wearing your seatbelt and you're doing everything right, and then you accidentally swerve and hit a tree because accidents happen, and you wake up the next day or later that day and you're attached to that friend with a, you know, blood transfusion that you didn't but you're there. That's where you are now. And at this point, it's your right to make the decision. Do I carry on allowing them to do this blood transfusion to save my friend's life? Or do I say, no, I don't. And I was like, morally, yes, you want to do that. But I said, the question isn't morally, it's, legally. Do you feel like the government legally says, nope, you have to stay there. You have to do this. You have to keep this person alive despite what it's doing to you.
Yeah.
And I got a little bit of kickback, but it kind of prompted me. So like I said, here's the deal. I wasn't raised in the church. I was raised with this ideology of God and praying and, that there was something bigger than us. But at 18, I was in college, freshman in college. I was with the same guy for like 4 years. We lived together, and I was on birth control. Same thing. I was doing everything right. I was taking birth control. I was being precautious. I was, whatever. And I got a really bad sinus infection, was on antibiotics, and nobody told me, including my doctor, that can lessen the effects of birth control. So needless to say, a few weeks go by and I'm like, something's not right. So I go to the doctor and they're like, you're pregnant. And I'm like, no, like this isn't the time. And it's one of those things, like I had conversations with my parents. I had conversations with, my significant other. And I mean, first words out of his mouth were, well, we're going to abort that, right? Like, I mean, it wasn't even a question to him. So that told me right there, like where I stood, like if I make this decision, it's going to be me. And it's going to be me alone. Obviously, there's going to be some financial ties that he can't, get away from. But at the end of the day, this was going to be my responsibility. I mean, yes, they can. Yes, they can. But I mean, at the end of the day, I was like, this is going to be my thing. But the problem with that is I put so much pressure on myself when I made that decision. And I actually had a really tough time because I went to the hospital and they told me I couldn't get it done. It was too early. They sent me home. I had to go back home. I'd never basically.
Too early.
Like
you couldn't even take the pills, like the pills in your mouth.
No. So this was 2000, October of 2000. So we're talking 21 years ago almost, but
wow.
Yeah, it was a while ago, but no, something. And again, it may have been the time, but they were basically like, they could barely see whatever it was on a ultrasound to actually do, which didn't make sense. I'm like, a DNC cleans everything. But I remember it like it was yesterday. They like sent me home and told me I had to come back in 2 weeks. So here I am, made this decision, like felt like secure in my decision. And they're like, go home. So I had 2 weeks to just like be and sit in this. I was a wreck. And then afterwards I did it. And like,
and how many times did you change your mind in those 2 weeks?
Oh my God, a million.
Yeah.
A million.
Yeah,
like
a million.
I mean, every day it was like, okay, could I do this? Maybe, and I'm arguing with myself, like maybe this is God's way of saying I need it. Like I went through all of those like roller coaster emotions and thoughts. And, I ended up going back, of course. And I remember like going in, I'm crying. They're like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah. And they did it. And I like woke up in a room with like 6 other girls. In like the room, it's like the whole experience was just, I mean, I want to say surreal. I mean, it was. And my boyfriend's out in the waiting room and I'm like, I remember like groggily walking to the car. I remember pulling off the side of the road, vomiting on the side of the road, like over and over again, just like between just the whole stress of it all and the actual proceed. Like it just took everything out of me. So we get home. I was like a shell of a human for like several weeks. We ended up obviously parting ways, but then after that, I rushed into everything. Like religion played such a huge role in how I played out the remainder of my time. So, the very next guy, like this was in October of 2000. I was dating my ex-husband, who was not the guy that I was living with at the time, by I think March of 2001. We were engaged by June. We were married by May of 2020 or 2002. I had my first baby by 2004. So like I pushed the fast forward button because I had this incredible guilt. And I also had this fear that God's not going to let me have babies. Like I'm, he's going to punish me for me. Like I had all of these horrible like ghosts that I was just holding on to. Yeah. And, that was the part of the reason I think I told my story, because I was like, I don't want these young girls who think they're doing everything they can to be safe and make the right decisions and do the right thing by them, and let society, guilt, God, whatever the case may be be the driving force for the next 5 decisions they make because of that one decision.
Mhm.
And that's really
Yeah.
what it was. Like, you know, I really did. I let this guilt. And the funny thing is, you know, my mom was there for all of it. And she told me, like, you know, God love her, but she told me, you know, in the situation, she's like, you know, we'll support you, but we won't support you. Like this, if you decide like this is on you, this is your baby, this, and I knew that, you know, and I had moved out when I was like barely 18. Like I've always been super independent. Like I didn't expect anything from them, but it was like really that thing, like, okay, I'm doing this all by myself. And,
Right.
and
That's a
so
lot.
it's funny. It is. And so it's funny. And I was, you know, I ended up dropping out of college. I was really upset with myself. Like I was 2 years in, I left college. I got married young. I had a baby young. I didn't actually graduate from college till I was pregnant with my second daughter, and walked when I was like 5 months pregnant, you know? So it was like, I kind of put my life on hold to create this life to make up for what I think I did wrong, you know?
Yeah.
And then, you know, and of course I ended up staying in an even more toxic relationship for, you know, over a decade again, because now I was ingrained in this Christian lifestyle. I had this Christian in-law family, like I'm doing right and I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. And it didn't matter that I was getting legit trampled on emotionally and mentally and everything else. I just felt like, well, this is just what I have to do. So, you know, 3 babies later, God said, here's 3 girls. God help you. But good luck. But yeah, I mean, I just, you know, but again, I think that was my biggest thing, was just letting people know that don't let a single decision dictate the rest of your life.
Your whole life.
Your whole life.
Your whole life.
Right. And guaranteed, 100% guaranteed, the men who watch their girlfriends go through this, they do not hold on to that guilt. They're not ever judged for that guilt.
No.
When you're seriously dating a man and considering whether or not you are going to spend your life with them, or man or woman, doesn't matter. When you're seriously dating somebody, but especially with a man, you feel like you know, at least I did. I felt like I was obligated to tell somebody that this had happened to me. But men don't have that stigma. You never ever hear a man saying to a woman, hey, so when I was a teenager, I knocked some girl up and she had an abortion. Like you don't have to live with that. You don't have to tell your parents, you know. And I remember when I was 16 going through that situation where, you know, I was just so desperate to just fix it that I didn't press my boyfriend to tell his parents at all. And my mom was so upset with me for that. She was like, you have to live with this. You have to deal with this physically. Yeah. You have to deal with this for the rest of your life. And he has no repercussions from the actions that he was an equal part in. And he gets to go have his sports career and go to college and play D1 sports with absolutely no repercussions for it. And, you know, and that's a huge problem too.
But isn't that how it always is? Like society has always been that way, right? Where men, you know, they go from their mom's tit to their wife. They really do. I mean, you know, like it's, you know, I had brothers growing up and they didn't have the same rules as us. They didn't do chores like we did, you know. They weren't required to do the same things. Like my mom never yelled at them for not closing their mouths while they were eating, because no one would date you if you chew like a horse. I cannot tell you how many times I've been told that in my life. Okay. I had to wait until I was 16 to get into a car with a boy, but my brother was going on dates with girls at 13. Like the standards are very low for men, and it starts from the moment they're born, except for my 2 boys. I'm not having that shit here. We're not doing that in my house.
Well, I always said God didn't give me any boys because I don't have the patience for that shit. I'm telling you right now, I'm not even kidding. My brother's 7 years younger than me. And I remember I would go to the house when I was like 19, so he's 12. My mother is still cleaning his bedroom. I'm like, what the F? Like, you haven't cleaned my bedroom since I was 4. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
But boys never carry any responsibility.
I'm like, no, he's nasty. Like, stop cleaning his room.
They don't carry responsibility. They aren't taught responsibility. Very few parents foster, life skills into boys outside of be a man, be strong, take care of women by going to work or whatever. Don't cry. Don't show emotion.
Yeah.
I'll give you a reason to cry. That bullshit, toxic masculinity, and it goes into when they're teenagers and they make choices with their partners, get a girl pregnant. Well, it's not real to them. It's not tangible. Like even our husbands, they'll tell you they didn't feel like parents until they held that baby, right?
Right.
Like grown
absolutely.
men, and we're like out to here. And I'm like, what do you think's going to happen? Like this is happening.
Something's coming out and you have to
put
take
it
care
in
of
there. I know like you haven't really been a part of the process thus far, but like it's
Get on board.
Yes. And then they're born, they're like crying, they get all the good pictures, and you're sitting there like this in a hospital bed. Like it's not fair. It's not fair. And they get the good eyelashes. I have feelings about it.
I know my son has the longest eyelashes I've ever seen.
Mine too.
Problem.
It's offensive. It's offensive how
really
much boys get away with everything.
You say that. So like my ex-husband was the oldest and I'm the oldest of two. And it was really funny because when we met, like he still lived at home with his mom. Like he did homeschool. So like he got a job at like 16 at the local, like in the county working at maintenance or whatever. So he worked, I mean, I say he didn't work, but like his mom took his paycheck and she paid like his insurance and she paid his phone and then she put his money in the bank and he just spent it. Okay. Like he had no idea how like finances work. Like I'm not even playing.
Yeah.
And so I had been living on my own for almost 2 years. I had worked two jobs. When he first met, I was doing 15 credit hours at CNU. I worked a night shift job as a waitress, like bartending and waitressing. And then I worked during the day, like when I wasn't working at the job as like a part-time manager at a local pet store. Both in Williamsburg. So I'm like busting my ass and he makes me, don't you want to not work so hard? I'm like, well, shit, of course I don't want to have to work so hard, but like, I need to take care of myself. Like, this is where I am. And so he was like, he just like always was so taken aback by the fact I did so much. Like he didn't get it. He really benefited from it after we got married, but like, he just, and then one of the big things was my dad had an affair. So, and I was aware of it. And it was like a really, I'm like 4th generation divorce. So it was like one of those things, like, I don't want to be my parents, most people that come from divorcees, they like, I don't want that for me. I don't want that for my kids. So like, he knew that up front, like, and he's like, I will never do what your dad did to your mom to you. I'm like, awesome. Like, cool. I'm on board. Like, let's do it. Christian family, his parents were married. So I'm like high hopes over here. And then, not. So all lies. But, it's just like, it was the fact that I should have known. My mom always joked. She's like, you should have seen the red flags. Like, you took care of all the bills. You did all the stuff because he never had done that. And I'm like, I get it. But, I think I just expected more. And it's like you say, like, we dictate what our boys will become as men. Like we do.
Right.
And women really need to step up and do better.
Right. The expectations for men are very low. Like even being on TikTok, you'll see women like, show me your grown man without telling me you're a grown man. And it's men. And they're like, look at my bathroom. It's clean. And I'm like, that's the bar.
That's the bar.
That
you cleaned your bathroom before you made a TikTok. Okay.
All right, show me behind the toilet. Shut up. I don't believe you. Like that's the bar. And I think a lot of it is because women are, taught to think really low of themselves sometimes so that they can like strive to be with mediocre men who are basically like a jar of mayonnaise. Like you don't want mayonnaise. You want like honey mustard, like ranch dressing, not mayonnaise.
I want Chick-fil-A sauce. Okay. That's what I want.
The Polynesian.
Right?
Yeah. I'm all about the blue cheese. Yeah, no, I think it comes from all angles. It's like where do we start? You need to raise your sons to not be a part of the problem as much as you can, but you also need to give a good example and provide good examples. It's amazing how young these kids are are like really, really paying attention. And like
Oh,
that
yeah.
I'm out, kind of getting out of the baby phase and going into the, my son is 3.5, where I'm now like, oh my gosh, you remember that I told you that 3 days ago? Like, okay, well,
Yep.
now we have to, now
accountable.
the hard stuff really starts. And it's like, I see how he watches the way that my husband treats me. And, it just, it has to come from all angles. And, I think that it, like I said, it's like, it's not just black and white. Like you go and you watch Tucker Carlson or whoever is saying that these people are killing babies and abortion should be illegal. And like, it just is not that simple. And if we lived in Tucker Carlson's world, we'd all be white and happy white picket fence, but that just isn't what this world is about.
No.
If there's anyone in the world that I want to punch straight in the dick, it is Tucker Carlson. If I ever saw him, like,
please.
Have you seen that?
So much.
John Oliver did a piece on him, and he had
oh my gosh, last night, me and my husband
footage.
watched it last night.
Oh my gosh, with the he's got like a little teeny tiny bow tie, and he's like, it's super bloated and like.
Oh yeah, I was shocked. Like I was
he was fat.
He was a big boy.
Yeah.
He was a big boy.
But I was like really shocked by him because he was like, I always find it hilarious when white people ask other white people about people of color problems. I just find that crazy, and that's something that happens in our society.
Way too much.
99% of the time, right?
Yeah.
And the host was like, how do you feel about this race thing? Like, should we stop? Like, what do you think? What are your takes on it? And he was like, I think we should stop talking about it. We just ignore it.
Oh, yes,
and the problem won't happen. And I'm sitting here, like, I looked at Drew and I was like, you got to pause it. I got to get up and go scream for like 2 minutes. I'll be back. And like, I like walked into the bathroom and like use the bathroom, splash some water on my face because I was like, I have heart problems. I cannot get like this heated.
No.
He was driving me insane.
He's awful. Yeah. His voice is like grating.
Yeah. And what is that with like the conservatives who don't see color? Like color.
They see it enough to get to the damn tanning salon. Like, look at them.
Yeah. Oompa Loompa Land over there at Mar-a-Lago sees a lot of color over there.
Yes, for real.
But that's what I don't get. It's like, the people calling for equality, they take any time that they can to reverse the script and call liberals racist. They will take the opportunity to do that. And it's like, that's just not how the world works. Everyone isn't equal. Some people need more help than others. Like some people are different than others, and understanding and respect is what we need, not blindness.
Yeah.
They don't really understand the concept of equality and equity, right? Like that.
Yes.
Everyone. If you give a child, a person in a wheelchair, and a grown man a box to look over a fence, the same size box, not everyone's going to be able to see.
Right.
Exactly.
So in order for it to be equal and everyone to have the same view, some people need a little bit more of a lift than, a grown man.
Right.
And I'm like, if my 9-year-old and 5-year-old can understand this, it's not that they're incapable of it. It's just that they don't want to because they're very comfortable with being, at the top of the game, which most of them aren't because they're not 1%ers, right? Most of them are in the bottom. Like if you drive down my road where we live in rural, North Texas, most of the Trump flags are in homes that are clearly well below the poverty line.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are you voting for someone?
What is he doing for you? What is he doing?
He's doing nothing except letting you say the N-word. That's it.
Right.
That's all he's doing.
Giving you permission to be the racist you are, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. I agree. Well, it was funny. I heard a really good kind of analogy where it's similar to that equality thing, but they were saying how, when whites were here, we started here, and when blacks were here, they started here. Like they were owned. They had nothing. And then basically they're like, okay, you're not owned anymore. Guess where they were still? here.
Here.
They weren't
yeah.
given any restitution. They weren't given any, they were promised things, but they weren't actually
Jim
delivered
Crow
on.
laws happened.
Right.
Mass incarcerations. Yeah.
Nothing happened. And then they said, and the guy's like, it doesn't matter. They could work harder. And so this guy basically was like saying, okay, let's say you and your neighbor have the same house, same job, same income. Everything's great. But he has one less arm. Is he at a disadvantage than you? And he's like, well, I mean, yeah. And he's like, but he has the same job. He has the same house. Like, why is he what? Well, because he has one less arm. Exactly.
Yeah.
So if these people are starting here, it doesn't matter if they started here. Like, they're not seeing the fact that it doesn't take a short period of time, because really 150 years, that's not a long time.
No.
In the whole,
and most of our parents
grand
were alive
scheme.
during, when they got rid of segregation,
exactly.
like.
Oh, my mom was bused. I mean, my mom was
Yeah.
only 69 years old. My mom was bused.
My dad's 69. Yeah, same.
Yes.
Like,
and they were bused. They had to deal with, like, they bust them downtown and bust the Black community uptown. And, she dealt with all of that. So it just blows my mind that they can't recognize, they haven't had enough time, and they definitely haven't been given anything restitution wise to be anywhere near the same starting point, period. Like, in any way.
Well, yeah, and it's amazing to me that, like, even like talking about the I think we have the same meme in our head, Kate, because I think I've seen the meme that you were talking about.
Yeah.
My 3-year-old can understand that equality versus equity. So I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. My 3-year-old is a lot taller than my 1-year-old, obviously. We have 2 step stools in our bathroom when the kids go in and brush their teeth. And I have one step stool that is way shorter than the other for the 3-year-old. And he really, really wanted to use the taller one so he could see a little bit better. And I explained to him, I said, look at Danny. When she gets up on this smaller stool, she can't see the sink. She can't understand, she can't reach to brush her teeth. And I was like, we think about other people and how we approach this situation. He was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's the kind thing to do. My 3-year-old understands that. Like, how is 50% of our country not understanding that we need to think of other people and think outside of yourself? Like, come on.
That's what, like, I have a hard time wrapping my head around, like I said, I grew up Southern Baptist, very strict, conservative Southern Baptist. And I have a really hard time with my parents now still being more conservative or Trump supporters.
Same.
I have a really hard time with it because they raised me growing up to care for other people as Christ cared for us, right? Like, that was like drilled into me, right? Jesus love. What would Jesus do? Yada, like, that was drilled into me to care about other people before yourself. Jesus said, come, let all the children come to me. All of these things, like red and yellow, black and white, they are precious in our sight. Like, this was drilled into me, as a child. And as an adult, I'm actively seeing them choose to not care for other people, but still claim to be followers of Christ. Oh, yeah. And that's and honestly, the whole reason I left the church and left the religion was just because I don't buy into it. I just don't. Like, I cannot raise my children with that understanding and watching people actively disenfranchise others in the name of Jesus. Like, I just can't. Not trying to crap on anyone that is still identifies as a Christian. That's great. I'm agnostic now. It's hard to wrap your head around.
It is, but I tend to use my Christianity to kind of combat these
you're very
conservative
good at
Christians. Because, like, especially when it comes to, I taught Sunday school for 5 years. I sang in the choir. Like, I was an active member of my Southern Baptist church, and I was really engrossed in it because I found it at age 21. Like, it wasn't like someone who was raised in it. And it's a different feeling. When you're raised in it, it's almost indoctrination.
It is.
Like, it's almost, it's literally something you just know because you have to.
Felt very
raised
cult.
in it. Yeah, it's very cultish. And that's what I kind of, and like, for me, even though I can still consider myself a Christian, I have no denomination. I have no, church tithe per se, but But the thing is, I wasn't raised in it. So for me, it was me seeking it out. It was different, like the reason behind that. So I think it changed my relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I saw the hypocrisy in the church. And even now, not being obviously in the church because of COVID and everything else, you know, and dealing with conservative Christians who want to tell me, you know, I've had a lot of that lately, but tell me I'm not a Christian because I support abortion, or I'm not a Christian because I voted for Biden. Like, I'm like, your understanding of Christianity is very lost.
Is extremely flawed. It's
just, it's not Christianity. And like this one guy, and I don't normally call creators out. Like I try not to, like I'll stitch people and just kind of like correct what they're saying, but I really try not to, like, this is not me. But this one creator, this guy who's literally God, family, like whatever in his bio, and his entire content, and I shared it with you, I think today, his entire content was just misogyny, bigotry, homophobic, you know, racism. And I'm just like,
Joe Bro. I'll say his name.
Joe Bro. Yes. And I'm like, where in any of your content are you showing Christianly love? I mean, and then and he's like, well, what are you doing by calling me? I said, actually, brother, I'm like, it's my job as a Christian to call out my fellow Christian and show them the right way to treat others and be Christianly. I said, but when it comes to non-Christians, which based on your philosophy, everyone you're talking about is not a Christian. You're supposed to approach them with love, kindness, acceptance. You know, you're not going to bring anybody to God with this idealism that you're putting out. Okay. Like the last thing they're going to do is know about your Christ. Okay.
Right.
And like, that's my whole argument. I'm like, you're doing the exact opposite of what you claim your Bible says. And then the whole like abortion argument, they love to throw Jeremiah 1:5. I like called out a woman today, or a guy today. And I'm like, you know, Jeremiah 1:5 is saying that God knew Jeremiah as a prophet. He made him to be a prophet, just like he knew Mary was going to be the whatever. Like those were prophecies. Like he said this was. It's not saying that all babies are God's children. He never said that. Like that's not said. Like there's no place in the Bible that abortion is spoken on or abomination or whatever. You know, and it's everybody then just trying to misinterpret it to fit their narrative, to spew hate. Like that's all it is. That's all the Bible has become. It's become a facet to, you know, spew hate by people that want to claim it as their crutch to be ugly and hate everybody. And I'm just, I'm over
and that
it.
has no place in our government.
No place in our government.
None.
It has
I am
no place.
so tired of letting this book and these people's beliefs influence my life so much.
Yes.
Like, and made me like growing up and fighting for gay marriage. Like, I just will never understand how this crazy majority has the ability to interpret their book however they please, to dictate other people's lives. Like,
and most of the time it's
just
incorrectly interpreted.
It is. Yes.
You know, I get this
interpretation
argument all the time, like with my dad, for example. Again, strict Southern Baptist. And we were talking about, he told me one time that my children could marry their cousins because it was ordained by God. And it talks about it in the book of Leviticus. I was like, Dad, I don't think that's right. Two, gross. I was like,
I'm not here for it.
DNA is still a thing. Like that's disgusting, you know? Yeah. But he went into like this whole big spiel about, you know, kind of cherry picking what like the Old Testament versus the New Testament says, you know? And I was like, Dad, you can't pick what parts of the Bible you want to subscribe to. Okay. This isn't a la carte. Okay. That's not how it works. All right. Exactly. You can't be like, Matthew looks good and a little bit of Genesis because it says man and woman. And I like that. But you know what? That guy, Cain, he was a bad guy. We're only going to talk about Abel, even though they had lots of kids. Don't get me started on all that incest, okay? But like, it's this whole thing. And I told him, I was like, well, according to the Bible, Dad, you know, when I had Holden, my oldest, out of wedlock, I should have been stoned, and both of us should be put to death because we are wearing mixed fabrics. And he goes, well, you should have been stoned, but we liked you. I was like, okay, thanks, Dad.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, then you're
God
never
love
allowed
him,
to talk
but-
to me while I'm on my period. And you can't grow
Yeah.
facial hair on a Tuesday. Like, what?
It's
Yes.
just wild. I'm like, it's not how it works.
But it is. They pick and
all.
choose. Yeah.
They
which is
really
like,
do.
they love to throw like, well, I have the death penalty. I'm like, how can you be pro-life and pro-death penalty? And
It
they're
doesn't
like,
make sense.
an eye for an eye. And I'm like, honey, that's Old Testament. Did you read the New Testament where he says turn a blind eye? Because that's, follow it up. And they're
Like
like,
the whole point, like they say that like we don't have to live that way anymore is because God sent Jesus to die on the cross,
right. I mean,
so we
Old
don't have to
Testament should just
sacrifice
really be
goats
just
anymore,
dissolved
and
anyways.
Abraham doesn't have to kill his kids. You know what I mean? Like that's not a thing anymore. But like they don't want to talk about that. They just
Well,
want to live in their perfect bubble.
I pissed off somebody because I told him that that God was God was asexual, and they were really not happy about that. I was like, well,
God.
God made Adam
What else
in
would
his
he be?
image, and he made man and woman in his image. Like it says it, and I'm like, that's Genesis. Like he's asexual. Like he's both man and woman. They're like, no, and I'm like, gender's a social construct. Like let's just move on. Like let's just move
when
on.
they're like man and woman, I'm like, what about intersexed people? What about
I'm
people
just trying
that
to
are
hurt
born
their
with
feelings.
testicles and uteruses? Like those things happen.
It's real.
Right.
It's real.
They're made in his image, right?
Yeah. And his image has both images. So he's asexual. Shut up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I hurt your feelings.
Forget asexual. He's non-binary in my
He's not binary.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I know.
I I want everyone to be able to practice their own religion. I want everyone to believe whatever they want to believe as long as they're not infringing upon other people's rights. And I think that's what's important. Like it's very simple. Don't infringe upon other people's rights. And that's really what America was stolen for, right? Was the freedom of religion.
Exactly.
I'm not going to say founded, stolen, but that's what it is. And, everyone uses the argument, well, under God. I'm like, well, who's God? My God, your God, Allah? Because, if we're talking my God, his name's Harry Styles. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Whoever,
It's interpretive. It's interpretive.
But I don't think religion has any place in the government, state, federal, has no place. Just like if, they were up in arms when Obama was elected because of being Muslim, and Christian. And people were like, oh, he's going to make us read the Quran. And now they're not teaching kids cursive in elementary school. You're like, what?
Calm down. Calm down, Karen.
Calm down, guys. It's not that.
I know. My daughter sent me a video, and she goes, and she sent it to me because it literally applies to her. This is my oldest. And she was like, before the pandemic, good Christian, heterosexual. After the pandemic, hate God, hate the church, like women. And I was like, facts. She goes, tell me how I went into this as a Bible-beating Christian that did missions trips to openly bisexual leftists. Okay, have a great day.
A guy did the same thing, and he was like, I started 2020 as a Mormon, married, ended it as a non-binary, divorcee, atheist, like all these things. And I was like, oh, so you had a rough year.
You had a rough year. You know how many kids, okay, this is so awful, but I work in a school, and we had like so many parents come back divorced after the pandemic.
I'm sure.
And I'm like, that was a lot of quality time that was not needed is basically what I'm hearing.
I'm not surprised because those first 6 months here in Texas, and my husband was home for 3 of them straight. I remember at night I would look at him and just be like,
we should just go away.
Girl,
what would happen if I just kicked him in the kidneys?
My husband has been an invalid for the last month.
Oh, yeah.
I am very surprised that we have not had a murder or a true crime situation in this household. I mean,
that's good. That's good.
Let's just So, okay. Well, speaking of true crime, I think we have to pivot. I know your one big rabbit hole was abortion rights, but we have to hear about your experience. I think Jess was telling me about the body and the mattress. What is the situation?
Yeah. We got to talk about the body and the mattress.
Okay. So let me just preface this. Okay. So I started in property management when I was 18 in student housing. Okay. I'm 33 now. I've been in that business my whole life. I moved on to like the vendor side, but I was like on site. I was a leasing agent, accountant, property manager, regional manager. I was a trainer. Then I wrote property policy and procedure manuals for companies. So like I am, if you have any questions about anything to do with property management all over the world, I'm your girl. Okay. I literally wrote the book on it. Okay. But, so when I was working on site, I would have to walk apartments when people like had moved out or like, we hadn't heard from them in a while, and so like I have found a very large amount of dead people.
Oh, Jesus.
I would say at least 20 that I can
Oh,
think
my
of.
God.
20?
Yeah, easily.
That's a lot.
Easily.
That's a
yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's rough. Like I remember one guy, this is a tangent, but one guy, we walked his apartment and like we thought he wasn't home and his apartment was a mess and a wreck. And we like all of a sudden we heard him go and like rolled over and he was like under a blanket. We like started screaming in the apartment with like the maintenance workers because we had knocked, he didn't answer, it doesn't end good. He died the next day. Like he was
He was on his way out.
Yeah, he had some inner demons, but yeah, it was anywho. No, I was working. This was when I was in Houston. Living in Houston, I was 22, 21. So I wasn't a mom yet, but I was living in Houston and working, and we had a resident that was an older woman. She was probably 75, 76, something like that. And her adult son who lived with autism lived with her full time. He was in his like mid to late 40s. Super sweet man, just wasn't able to live on his own,
Right.
And his mom always came down and paid rent on time, no issues, nothing. And one month, we didn't hear from her. And I was like, that's weird. So I called and she didn't answer. I was like, that's weird. I'm going to go drive down and check on her, and you're not thinking dead because her son would tell us,
Right.
And so you would think, thinking back now, I wish I wouldn't have thought that way because he was experiencing autism, to a pretty severe side of it to where he couldn't really communicate with us as well as we like thought he could, if that makes sense. That was me not realizing that I just wasn't paying attention. But so went down there and I knocked on the door and I heard him on the other side and I was like, hey, can you answer the door? I just want to check on you and talk to your mom. He was like, she's napping. And I was like, okay, well, can you open the door? And he was like, okay. And so he like kind of opens it and the smell, it just, and I went, fuck. Like I just knew. It wasn't my first rodeo. I just knew. And I was like, hey, so your mom's napping? And he was like, yeah. I was like, okay, well, can you have her call me when she wakes up? Like I'm trying not to upset him and at the same time, because I know she's dead in the apartment. I know. And so like once you've smelled like a really old dead body, you never not smell it. Like sometimes I'll just smell it like phantom smells. I'm like, someone's dead. Yeah. So anyways, I went back downstairs, called the maintenance guy, and I was like, yeah, we need to call the police officer, like our courtesy officer, who was actually a police officer. Called him, brought him down, and I was like, he was a state trooper, and I was like, so she's dead. He was like, how do you know? And he was like, shit. And I was like, yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah. And so the property manager, we called her. She wasn't on site. I was the assistant property manager at the time. And so it was just me. I called her. She was out of town for something. And so went back up, knocked on the door, and I was like, hey, do you mind if like I come in and we chat for a second? And he let me come in and I was like, so your mom's asleep? And he was like, yeah, kind of. And I was like, okay, well, do you think like you could wake her up? Maybe we could talk to her. And he was like, he kind of leaned in. He was like, I was like, okay. And so he like asked me to walk with him to his mom's room. And I was like, okay. And the state trooper was following behind me. And And I just remember thinking, like, be as calm as possible because he is going to be upset. Like, something's not right here, you know.
Yeah,
I
how
didn't
old
feel
was
in
he?
danger. He's in his late 40s. And
Oh.
so I walked into his room and I saw like the bed had been slept on, but it was kind of like weird. Like the bed wasn't right. And I just remember the state trooper like grabbing my shoulder really, really tight. Like, don't move anymore. Like, stop walking. This might be a crime scene. Kind of vibes I was getting, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Long story short, he lifted the top of the mattress and his mom had died. She had been gone for at least a week, they said, but he didn't know what to do. And so he placed her on the box spring and then put the mattress on top because he always slept in bed with his mom and he didn't know what to do. So he was like sleep.
sad.
Yeah, it's actually a really terrible story. It's really sad. I will tell you that is not like it's the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. It was very like
I can't imagine a week like, and I mean,
I don't know how I didn't pass out or throw up, to be
You're
honest with you,
right.
because when he
I don't
lifted
know
it, I just was
either.
like,
probably shock. I mean, you were
Yeah.
probably in shock in the moment.
yeah, it was a
100%,
rough
yeah.
go. That was a rough go. Like,
Wow.
we got him into like a adult facility because he didn't have any siblings or anything in the area.
Yeah.
And I went and visited him like a few times over the years. And then I
Oh,
just stopped because
sweet.
I moved and stuff. But yeah, that was, it was like to this day, like, I know this sounds terrible, but like, I can't open sandwiches. Like once they've been closed, like I can't open them because that's what I think about.
Why
That's
does
random.
that make sense to me? No, that makes sense to me.
Like I just can't. Like people are like,
Thanks.
"What's in this?" I'm like, I can't do that. It's not for me.
Oh my goodness.
There's
Oh my
been
gosh.
so many.
So that's what, when Jess said the mattress story, I was like, okay, I remembered back to the first TikTok that I saw you in was the true crime one where that was on, what show was it on? At the
My mom's
Chick-fil-A? Was it
husband. Yeah. The KFC murders.
KFC
Yeah.
Murders. Yeah, that's what I thought you were
Yeah.
talking about.
I've always been obsessed with true crime my whole life. Like always.
Yeah.
And a lot of people on TikTok, they know me through another podcast called My Favorite Murder. I
Right.
was pretty well known on like their fan pages and was an admin and was kind of like the face for the fan pages for a while.
Oh, very cool. I love My Favorite Murder.
And then I stopped doing it because I got a stalker, like for like crazy woman, very single white female stalker. Yeah, it was wild. But anywho, my mom's husband, her first husband, before I was born, when she was pregnant with my brother, he was kidnapped from a KFC along with 4 other people and murdered. And they didn't find the killers until they were sentenced in 2008, but there's a third killer or a third set of DNA that hasn't been identified yet. This was like 1983. But yeah, it's on Investigation Discovery. It's called Murder and Mayhem. It's like Texas Massacre is the name of the episode. You can see a woman reenacting my mom on it. But our whole life was like about that case. And my mom's a real trooper though, like dealing with all of that and having kids and stuff. Like, yeah. She's a strong woman dealing with all of that for sure. But I told that story. That was the first set of videos I did that like I was just talking and they just went crazy. Yeah. And I was like, oh, people are going to see like people are actually watching me. And then within like a few weeks, I had like 20,000 people watching. And then it's, just grown since then.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have as big a platform as a lot of people, but I mean, I feel like it's big. I
almost feel like political TikTok and even like true crime, conspiracy, whatever TikTok has like a niche. Like I feel like there's like, I don't want to say there's a max number, but I noticed that all of the really regular political, even like the ones that are like have been there just pushing out tons of content, like Nikki New, Goddess Mia, they're all in that 200 to 500. Like I feel like they can't like push past that, that number. I mean, I myself really didn't get into it till November, or not even November. Like, I I guess January,
I
because
was gonna say it was like around
January
the
was for me.
insurrection
I
is
was
when you
like-
got real.
yeah, after the insurrection, I got really political. Before that, I was investigating it. Like, it was like a constant thing for me. But the actual insurrection was what kind of prompted me. But yeah, so you're talking January 6th. It's almost April, and I've gained probably 45,000 followers in the last 3 months. So yeah, I was just, in fact, I did a video, what was it, Monday, for like, thanks for 59. And now I'm at like 65 or something. I don't know. And I'm like, what the hell? But yeah,
it happens fast.
but I think it's this certain people though, that it gets pushed out to, that all follow kind of the same TikTokers that do that kind of content, or, similar content. And
I feel like
there's
this with my numbers too. Like
Oh,
I'll go
yeah, me
days with like
too.
only gaining like maybe 1,000 in a week,
Yeah.
And then like last week I gained 5,000 while I was sleeping. Literally, I woke up to 5,000 new followers and I was like, what did I do? And then I looked and I was talking about being a boy mom, and then that video went crazy too. That one got picked up by a couple different like bigger creators.
Yeah.
And that was cool.
I'm doing, it's funny. It's funny how TikTok like works that way.
I try not to like put myself in one thing. Like that's why I have like a bunch of stuff I talk about.
Yeah. I am
I'm trying to do
hemorrhaging
that,
followers.
Really?
I have lost 2,000 followers on my main account in the last month and a half.
Do you think it's from when you got your ban? Remember we were talking on the phone then.
I'm pretty sure they have just taken me off of the For You page, like 100%. So my strategy has been to put political stuff on my backup account, and even that account is not growing as much as like when my main account went from like 20,000 to 100,000 in like 3 weeks. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I remember it happened like overnight.
Was it the Facebook mom group that did that, or was it the box?
It was Parler.
Yeah, it was the Parler Martyr stuff. Yeah,
it was Parler,
and good on y'all because y'all are way better than me because I cannot read that shit. I just can't.
I
go to jail. I get on an FBI list, y'all. So fast.
No, that's why I talk to them all the time, so they don't come knocking on my door. But yeah,
I'm an informant.
Yeah. I really need to kind of get on my main account and just kind of change it up a little bit and post stuff that is mom group related or whatever. You know, and just leave the Parler stuff to my backup account. But
those mom groups on Facebook make me so scared. Those women,
oh my gosh.
Let me tell you, I never feel more threatened in my life than when someone unsolicitedly adds me to a mom group on Facebook. I'm like, I'm sorry,
what
that is a
MLM are you showing?
veiled threat.
Yeah.
It is. What about me makes you think that I want to be in a baking group with moms? I don't want to do that.
No.
I just got a KitchenAid like 3 months ago. Like, I don't bake. We're not doing that.
Yeah. I don't need that kind of judgment in my life.
I have a mom group for you to infiltrate. I need to talk to you later. Yes.
Bring it. Yeah.
I will bring it.
There's so many, like I have friends that they're like cool mom group. And I'm like, okay, are you a cool mom? I don't think so.
Are you really not? You're
like,
lying.
oh my God, you're crazy. You have a chalkboard wall in your house. You're a wild lady. Like,
I need to see your wine rack. What does your wine rack look like?
I need to know if you make a face when you shoot Tito's. That's what I need to know. I need a mom group that's like, we're, 3 bad decisions away from a CPS issue. Like that's the kind of mom group I need. Not real. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like those are the moms.
I like lots of Miles because she speaks true mom truths.
My favorite mom groups involve the title "Definitely Average." Super definitely average moms. That's me.
Yeah.
I used to have this niche, like when I was on stage before, like all the BS and having kids and stuff. But I used to have like a niche where it was like world's okayest mom, and then someone stole it like years ago, and they like really took off with it and like branded it. Which good on them.
I remember that.
Yeah, but that's why like I changed it to like world's okayest. I was like, you can do something like that.
I'll make it mine.
Yeah. No one can take that brand. That's mine. Has my name in it.
Well, speaking of brands, we do have a little bit of an announcement. So, coming up, what we're going to be doing is we really want to kind of grow our Apple sponsorship. So what we're going to be doing is asking all of our followers to go obviously like and subscribe to the podcast on Apple. And then we want you to leave a creative review. You guys can do whatever you want with it. We're going to read our favorite review of the week every week
I love that.
of Apple Podcast reviews, and whoever wins this best comment award, review reward, will get a piece of merch, and that merch will come from either my store or Jess's store, or hopefully in the next couple of days we'll have the podcast merch coming out. So head over to Apple and give us a subscribe. Yeah, there it is. Subscribe and leave a comment. That's going to make us all laugh, and we will send you some fun stuff.
Yes.
So
I cannot
fun
wait to
times.
read them.
I know. I'm so excited. Well, Kate, we love you so much. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I loved going down the rabbit hole, a few rabbit holes.
Yeah. We will definitely have you back on the show sometime soon.
So. I really enjoyed it. Thanks, guys.
All right, everybody. We will see you next week. Please like and subscribe. And we love you all. Bye-bye.